Well, first of all, thank you all for being here. I applaud you for taking an interest in your own business, and knowledge is power, and learning more will always benefit you greatly. Diane and I are going to be bouncing ideas off of each other and our experiences and what's going on in our industry that can benefit you and protect your paycheck. I know Diane looks much younger than me, but she's been in the business a couple more years than I have.
I'm a lot older.
And honestly, if anything I tell you, she'll probably be able to tell you 10 times even better. So thank you for the opportunity, and hopefully information we provide you today will help benefit your business as you move on. Right?
And we also encourage questions if he goes along. Each one of you guys have different level of experience. You've had a lot of escrows, or just a few escrows, or no escrows, or titles. So we encourage you to either stop us, and if something completely goes over your head, just stop us right now and say, help. So, because what we're going to try to do here, like Derek said, is bounce a little bit off. Title and escrow work hand in hand on every single deal. So it's really important for people like Derek and I to get to know each other, to have confidence in each other, and to have confidence in each other's team as well. Because as you all know, Derek has a team of people behind him: the title officer, the title assistants, the payoff people, the sub-escrow people, et cetera, et cetera. And I have a team as well. So it's equally as important to get to know who that team is and what that team can do for you. So Derek and I luckily don't have too much communication back and forth, but I certainly know when I've got a problem, he's the first guy I go to. So, it always gets resolved. But we deal from escrow's side, we deal really more with the title officer and their team than we do with the rep on a daily basis. But some of the things that we want to talk about, and I handed out this thing on the back of this form here, is the statement of information. I know, Joni, I know you're familiar with this. Is everybody else familiar? I know Kim is too. But the importance of getting this form filled out, and then I'll let Derek jump in here as well. I always encourage you, when you take a listing or during the listing period, have your seller fill one of these out. Don't wait until you've gone into escrow and maybe the seller is now on vacation and not able to fill one out. The reason that these are important is because when a title order is opened, initially they are going to search the records of what is against the property. They may not necessarily record or report out any liens that are against the seller. And I'll let Derek go into a little bit more detail as to why that is. But if you can have your seller complete, just put one of these, make a copy of this if you want. If you want one in email format, let me know and I'll email one to you. And that way you can have it just included in your listing package. And every single time you take a listing, include it with your listing package, have the seller fill it out, send it over to us, and we will send it in a title, and then that will help clear the liens that you can talk about.
Thank you. We all like to get paid, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We all like to make sure our paychecks come easier than harder, yes? Okay. Diane hits on such a valuable point, especially in the short sale market. In traditional times, and Diane can correct me if I'm wrong, escrow sends out the escrow paperwork to the seller along with the SI statement, and generally speaking, correct me if I'm wrong, the seller will bring in all the information, including the statement of information, when they come to sign the grant deed 2 days before they close, or a few days before they close.
I mean, sometimes that's, but we don't really do the 2 day before close. I can't speak for any other escrow companies, but we get everything signed up front. So, and whenever humanly possible, since we're the notaries and the deed has to be notarized, we bring them in. I'll be on the phone with the seller shortly after the escrow is opened and call the seller in. And at that point in time, they fill out the statement of information if you guys have not already provided it to me.
And the reason she brings up such a valuable point, and obviously from her many years of experience, she knows why this is important, and she's passing that along to you. When we get the statement of information, like she says, we run a preliminary title report on her property. If the name is common, Kim White seems to be a common name. LA County? Okay. We're not even going to try and run any liens or judgments against her name. It's not even, forget it. You have no idea how many pages and pages our records show. It's not worth even trying. Valdez, we're not going to try Anna Valdez either. Tony Valdez, just not going to happen. Derek LeBlanc, LA County, okay, that's a little more common. If a name is non-common and there's very few items against it, we'll put it on the prelim. If it's anywhere remotely common or takes more than 10 seconds to scroll through, we're going to say forget about it. That's where the statement of information comes in handy. And the reason we're trying to get you, in Diane's idea, to get a statement of information up front upon listing, to clear your person's name is, in this short sale world, you guys are working harder than ever dealing with a first, a second, a credit, tax liens, judgments, all this stuff. If you wait till 6 months into the process, getting ready to close, and we get our statement of information from escrow, which is not her fault or any escrow's fault, but if your seller doesn't send it in until the last minute and we get it the day before and we date it down, do you want to deal with an IRS lien that was just found the day before closing?
Or
for
child
50
support.
or child support,
You know,
anything,
any number of things.
credit card judgments, any of those liens. Now, those are items that are going to have to be negotiated with that entity, the IRS, the district attorney's office for child support lien. Those have to be dealt with. They don't happen overnight. So if the statement of information that Diane provides up front is not turned in immediately, the clock is ticking on the potential to have to deal with those types of problems. I don't think your paycheck is worth losing over a deal not happening for a couple more months with potential foreclosure and everything that's going on in this world, just because a seller is, I don't want to say they're lazy, but they don't know the value of getting that back in right away. So the education that Diane's giving you of the value of a statement of information right away up front is paramount of importance to make your life and your paycheck come easier.
Well, a couple of little horror stories of what we have found. I'm closing a deal tomorrow that had we not gotten the statement of information early and found that we had an IRS lien, it was a short sale, actually a double short sale, and had we not gotten this, submitted it, and found that we had an IRS lien, we wouldn't be closing tomorrow. Because we started the process probably 4 months ago, working with the IRS to get them to release the house out from underneath the lien. They're not releasing the lien, but they're allowing us to close the house because they know there's no money. But had we not known that, and had we even if we had done that when we actually opened escrow, which was about a month ago, you know, we wouldn't be closing today because it's taken us we just got our IRS lien release last night, and we're closing tomorrow. So, you know, things like that we find out, and I'm always amazed how I've got another one. It's a standard transaction right now. We ran the SI and came back with a judgment against Mrs. Seller for non-payment of a $14,000 credit card. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Seller are getting a divorce, and Mr. Seller didn't know anything about it. So, you know, it's you know, you're making these phone calls, and all of this, you know, it could have been resolved way early. So it's important in all transactions, but it is especially important in either short sales or transactions where you get any wind whatsoever that there may be issues. So, you know, I recommend, and I know that Derek recommends as well, across the board. Just do it every single time.
On the flip side, not the horror story part, but more on the positive side, Cheryl, about a year ago, I said, Cheryl, you need to start getting these SIs up front. She's very analytical. And,
detail-oriented.
What's that?
Detail-oriented.
Detail-oriented,
Yeah.
I like that, that's better. And she started providing these on listing. And she, about 6 months ago, on a weekend, she sends me an SI, and she says, hey, Derek, I think there may be some issues on this. It's a traditional sale, and there's equity involved. And I want to make sure, because they were mentioning some stuff during the listing appointment that caused me concern, can you check the SI? Now, I did it on a weekend for her, and I ran, and I said, Cheryl, your people have 4 judgments, credit card judgments, totaling $70,000. She went back to her sellers, and they said, oh, well, that was all, we were clear to that in our bankruptcy. Well, good for them. They don't have to make that payment anymore, but guess what? We don't have a release of that lien, so it still has to be dealt with. So what happens is when banks, when the creditors see equity in a house, and that's the reason they put those judgments out there, they see an opportunity to get paid. Even though the people were personally relieved of liability, it still has to be dealt with during the transaction. So we sent in, she on behalf of the homeowners, she got authority to call the banks and said, okay, well, you know, can you guys resolve for maybe 10 cents on the dollar? And they're like, no, we want full amount. Cheryl, at that point, it turned into a short sale. These sellers are like, nope, we're not doing it if it's not equity. She walked away from that deal. Now, what if she wouldn't have got that statement of information, listed it, sold it, put it in escrow for a couple months, getting ready to close, sending that statement of information the day before, which still happens.
Oh, yeah.
What would happen at that point? You have a seller who's going to kill the deal because they're going to be like, well, if I'm not getting my equity, I don't want to sell. You're going to have a buyer who's
Mad, 'cause they just-
Mad.
madder than
Right.
mad.
Right.
They're not gonna-
And then now, what happens if buyer and seller, or what if buyer ends up going to their agent, and let's say it's you. Why was I not made aware of this? Whose unprofessionalism? So you want to come across as being as knowledgeable and professional as possible, and this is just another tool to make your life easier. So again, protect your paycheck, because have that transaction gone on for 4 months and everybody's ticking going, where's my paycheck? And it doesn't happen in the 12th hour, you wasted a lot of your own time and mental anguish. So we are trying to protect your paycheck.
Absolutely.
And that's why this is such a
One of the
fantastic idea.
pushbacks that we get sometimes from this, and I think you guys will, have either seen it or will seen it, is this is a lot of personal information. Of course, we're all living right now in a world of identity theft and identity fraud and et cetera, et cetera. People are becoming more and more aware of their information being out there, right? So I still get clients that will come in, they're sitting face to face with me in my office, and I get pushback about filling out birth date, social security number, driver's license, everything, because you're basically putting all of your identity that anybody needs on a piece of paper and handing it to a stranger. So, and it's we would probably do the same thing. We have been, lately, when I really get big pushback, I let them go ahead and just put in the last 4 digits of their social, which is fine. The title companies don't
That's all
seem
we
to have
run
any
by.
problem with that.
Yeah.
We're seeing a lot of the judgments, et cetera, coming back these days. The newer ones are coming back with just the last 4 digits. So I think everybody's becoming more and more aware of that issue. So, if you do run into that, you're welcome to tell your client, just put in the last 4 digits of the social. And, if we have a huge big issue, then we can explore it further. But nine times, probably more than 9 times out of 10, we're not going to have any issue with that. So.
We have to, at the end of the day, even if they push back, we have to have at least the last 4 of the social, otherwise we're not going to insure, because
Right.
we're the ones on the hook for anything against their name that's not dealt with. The creditor's going to come after the title insurance company, so
Right.
it has to happen. But again, in our system, all we use is the last 4 of the social, so if they're, like Diane said, if they're uncomfortable with it, that's fine.
Just have them put the last 4. I mean, there's a lot of other documents in escrow where we're going to need their socials, like 1099 and things like that. And we're experiencing pushback on that right now, too. So there's some discussion with entities like, the IRS and Franchise Tax Board and things like that, escrow-wise, that they're coming back, and we're trying to decide, how little information can we get away with without having to, divulge the world. So, but anyway, that's the importance of an SI. And again, if any of you want this form in email format, so that you can just shoot it out, however you handle
It's
your
on your website,
listing.
too, isn't it?
It is on my website, yes.
It's a generic form, all title companies have it, all
Probably on his
escrow
website,
companies have
too.
it. Yeah, it's a generic form, we all just put our logo up on top.
Might look a
so
little different, but it all has the same
Yeah.
information.
It all works the same.
So, yeah. Any questions on that? Okay.